Hello. Sorry for the delay on this, but it may seem like I know what I'm talking about. But this recording setup, letting you hear me, see me, and hear this and see this, yeah, it took me a good hour to figure out. So now we're here. I hope it's recording. I hope it's doing well. But yeah, I'll talk you through it quickly. So first off, this is Final Cut. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what each button does because A, you probably won't be using Final Cut, but B, as I said, it's important to talk about the techniques and stuff rather than the like the actual buttons and shortcuts. So things that might like pop around the screen because I'm clicking or using shortcuts or whatever. But I'll go through the rough. So first off, like you've seen this the famous piece. You've seen it 100 times now. But that's the whole finished piece. This is what the timeline looks like. It looks fairly simple. That's the Shopify logo in the corner. Here's the end cards here. It is quite simple. It's a little bit more complex than it. I mean, those are the titles and stuff that look common, but also it's a little bit more complex in general how it looks because I'm nesting stuff. Nesting is actually a term that is used usually in Premiere. They're called compound clips in Final Cut, but like it's essentially the same premise. But essentially, like, so you see this clip here that says, I'm pointing at the screens, as you can see where I'm pointing to. See this clip here, it says Manorma 2, that's her name. You know, if I double click and go in, you can see that there's extra stuff going in where I have to sync the audio and things like that. You don't always have to sync audio and things, but in my case I did because I was recording audio separately because I was on a gimbal. You don't care about that, we're here to talk about colour. So, first off, we'll take this shot, this opening shot. And I'll kind of like walk through what I did bit by bit. So currently the colour that's affecting this. So first off, if I just scrobble on the actual piece, you can see that's what it looked like. So when I shot it, it looked like that. Actually, that's not even true. This has a bit of colour as well. So this has the colour board attached to it. So if I disable that and disable this, now we can see. So when I shot it, it looked like this. So coming straight out of the camera.
Do you want a career in the film industry? This is your way in.
And it's a little bit hard to understand. I mean, it was hard to understand for me as well why we do that. Why do we shoot like that? And why is there not ways to like make it look good straight out of the camera? And the answer to that is that it just gives you more leeway. This kind of grey look to it, or this flat profile look as it's called, just retains the most information. So what I mean by that is, let's just enable all the color again. So this is how it looks. So this looks particularly good. Well, I didn't mean like that. I mean, this looks like how we want it to look, right? But the problem is with this footage is that the blacks are crushed, the whites are kind of blown out a bit. For example, like the darkest part of the bus here is black. If that was recorded that way, then that's it forever. That is always going to be that dark, and we're never going to be able to bring out more detail in that. And in this case, we don't want to have more detail in it because this is the look we're after. But in many cases, we don't, and we want to be able to change all that stuff. So that's why we start off with something like this. So what I'll do actually is I'll open a new project. So analyst lesson. Actually, I won't call it that because this might get saved somewhere else, and people will be like, "What's that?" Don't worry too much about this, as if it's super technical. I'll just make it 1080p. I'm just setting up the project. Okay, cool. So now we've got a brand new project. So what I'll do is I'll bring in a clip, just that clip. For ease, I'll bring in. Look how bad this other stuff is. By the way, if you wait to the end of this video, I will show you the industry, but I'm not going to do that right away. I'm not going to give that to you right at the beginning. Hell no. So let's go and get that the actual clip we used. And paste it into our lesson. So this is the clip we're going to be working with, the exact same one. I'm just going to go and that's all fine.
You want a career in the film industry?
So this is what it initially looks like. So I'm going to do a really, really basic color grade on this for you. and talk you through sort of like what I'm doing as I'm doing it. This is probably where the video should have started, is it? I don't know what that preamble was all about. But in Final Cut, I would do this. I would click here, which is this is the clip information, and this is the color information. Now, and that's going to be slightly different wherever you're looking, but this is just affecting this clip here because I'm selecting it. This is a really basic way of doing it. This is called a color board. I can add other color boards and layer them up or whatever. You've probably seen stuff like this before. Color wheels, color curves is also like a really heavily used one. These are all used by like experts and things like that. I dive into them sometimes when there's stuff that I can't do with just the board, but maybe not 99, but 90% of the time, I'm just using the color board, which is really simple stuff like this. Another thing that is like very helpful to use is I use a shortcut to open this. Is this. So this is I don't even know what it is. It's a wave. It's called a waveform, but essentially it's just giving you a representation of the image. You can sort of see just by the color and the kind of strength of each color and light in each one. So you can see that because
do you want a career in the film
you can
industry?
see the bus moving through.
This is your way in.
I keep pointing at the screen. I just realize you can't see that, but you can see things changing as they're playing. You can see up to 100 here and to 0 there, and you can see everything sits in the middle. And the reason for this shot, everything's kind of sitting in the middle, is because this is a very flat image. It's kind of like an ugly flat image. Well, I mean, people say ugly flat images. I think sometimes flat images can be stylistically quite nice, but everything's set in the middle. So first thing we want to do to give this a bit of contrast to make it look better is to make it not everything sit in the middle and sort of stretch it out. And the way we can do that is with this. So we've got 3 tabs at the top. We change the color, the saturation, or the exposure. You can see how much more simple this is than to the curves and the wheels and things. I'm just going to deal with the exposure first, which is the brightness of the image. So I can affect the overall brightness by this master slider here and move it all the way up to super bright or super dark. Obviously, we don't want that. I'm going to keep that in the middle because I'm not going to change the master. What I am going to change is these 3. Now, these 3 are these 3 down here. This one is the shadows. So essentially, it does the same thing, but all it's going to be doing is affecting the shadowy parts of the image. If I go to the top or bottom of anything, it's going to max everything out anyway. But it's only going to be affecting the shadowy parts of the image. And I might look like I'm an expert. I don't really know what that is either. I guess it just means the dark parts of the image. This is obviously the midtones and the highlights, which is the opposite of that. So this is what I do, and this is what I was taught. This is a kind of the standard way of doing it. Is the first thing you do when you would come to any image is to boost up the highlights and crush the black. So you put the shadows down. Sorry. So I can do that by eye, just by looking up and seeing where it kind of looks all right, natural. Or I can, and oftentimes I use this waveform here to make sure that I'm not going completely out. So you can see as I go higher, I keep pointing at the screen. As I go really high, you can see this stuff starts to kind of flatten out here. And what that is signifying is when it's going completely white in the image. So I move everything up, you can see there's a ton of it that's completely white, and on the screen, obviously, a ton of it's completely white as well. So obviously we don't want that. But we do want to go kind of high without losing detail, because as soon as so what I often do is I kind of go up until we start to lose detail, and then just kind of bring it back a bit. So I'm looking at this part of the image here because that's the first bit to lose. So up and then back. So now that is basically giving us as much brightness in the highlights as I can without losing any detail right there. I could also just do it by eye and just kind of roughly just go over 100 a bit, make sure it doesn't crush anything out, and there you go. So I'm doing that so I've ended up on 31% here. First time by looking at the image, second time by looking at this, but it's helpful to have both open. I'm going to do the opposite with the shadows. So bring them down, so they don't kind of flatten out. But they're there. Now already you can see how much better that looks. If I just say what we've done, you can see that's flat. Now, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I want to do something else. Maybe I want to bring the, why is that not changing anything? Maybe I want to do a stylistic, why is this not changing now? Oh, because I disabled the color. Maybe I want to I don't know. I won't go into too many options now, but maybe I want to do something crazy with it. It's nice to have that option. If it was recorded like this, it might, quote unquote, look better, but I wouldn't be able to change it because everything that's kind of all the blacks that are sort of crushed out, i.e. everything down here, or everything quite low, just doesn't have as much detail in it. Like that shadow there, we just have no detail. Whereas if I bring it up, you can see I can actually see more there than I could before. I really hope you can see my cursor. I assume you can. I don't know how the screen recording works because I'm pointing at loads of stuff on the screen. But there you go. So there's that. And then midtones I just kind of do by eye, whether that's how good it looks or, just kind of trying to keep those midtones sort of in the middle. Again, there's no hard and fast rule for this. It's not like you're supposed to keep those midtones in the middle. But there you go, there's that. So the color I never really touch unless you're going for something, because that's actually changing the color. If you want to change like well, I say I never really touch it, sometimes I do obviously, but not for basic color correction. But what I do is both boost the saturation, because that's another thing in flat images, the colors are a bit washed out. So I can boost that up like that height, for really vibrant images, or I usually just put it up a little bit. So straight off the bat, it's looking way better.
Film industry.
That's what it was when I recorded it, and that's what it looks like now. Now, here's when we can start kind of like getting creative. This is almost what I do to like all the footage, like almost immediately when I do it. In fact, I might even bring the saturation down a bit because we're about to introduce a new little thing into the mix, which is going to change stuff up, and that's what I talked about before, which is called LUTs. So, in Final Cut, this is actually a kind of a shit thing about Final Cut. It's like you have to apply an effect to even get a LUT on it, but yeah, other places will maybe just have it up here, but in this case, I'll go to this. Now, LUTs are basically Instagram filters. That's the easy way of saying it, or just filters. Obviously, this is Instagram. But there's just thousands out there. There's hundreds of thousands. There's official ones, unofficial ones, ones you can buy, ones that are free, ones people make yourself. Ones people make themselves, you can download, you can make your own. I could do all the color correction myself on here and then save it as a LUT and then sell it if I want to, which lots of people do. But these are just my ones that I've got pre-saved. There's even ones like these ones at the bottom, like Sony Vlog and stuff, that are designed just to get to this stage. So they're designed not to make it look interesting, but to just bring it from a flat profile to what we call Rec 709, or like just looking kind of a basic normal thing. I generally don't do that because that, again, it doesn't give you much freedom to move around. But I have done in the past when you're trying to move through things quite quickly. So for speed, I will just go straight to the one I used. I remember it. It was Montpellier, I believe. Yeah, Montpellier Alternative. So let's just whack that on, and it's on there. So now you can see the difference now. So let's go through this again. So that's where I started. This is my color board, which is my basic color correction, which was just all it was doing was stretching the highlights out, the lowlights down, and just boosting the saturation a tiny bit, which makes it that kind of difference. And then this is the LUT applied on top. And this, there's so many different looks you could have. I'll show you another look, for example. Like these ones I saved actually, because as I was looking through them all, I was like, I kind of like the look of these ones for this. This one's a bit kind of like flatter and washed. This one's a bit, the blacks are a bit darker. This one's a bit lighter and whiter, and obviously blue. I'm trying to describe to you the concept of a filter now. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, there's that. And I nearly used this one until I went to this one. I do quite like it in the end. So that's it basically. There's some options here. You can then change the intensity of that. Now, LUTs are supposed to be a starting point, right? Some people would just whack that on and be that's great. I could whack the LUT on first, and then, because this is what the LUT looks like, by the way. That's what it would have done to the footage. But with my initial coloring, I increased that contrast and stuff to make it look like this. Now, my boss said, can you color correct it? When it was at this point, I was like, fucking hell. So what I did is I just applied that same LUT on it again, just by doing that. So kind of like doubled it up. So let me do that. So now it's like this. Obviously, that's very strong. Now I can decrease the intensity of that now. So like that's 0. So that's how it looked a second ago on it. And I've got the second layer of the LUT on it, and I can just increase that slightly to about, I don't know where I had it. I think it was about there. And that's the final thing. So that's that. So now
in the film industry,
we can see the difference of what I've done just really quite quickly, to be honest. Obviously, the LUT is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there.
This is your way.
But you can avoid that by, let's disable the LUT, both of them. and try and achieve that same look just with the color board. Now this will be hard to do because if you really want to make like really intense changes like that, you can't just do it with this board. You need to introduce all these wheels and curves and stuff, which, you know, if I had time or the inclination to do, I could or would do that. Well, could learn how to, but I can't be bothered. But, you know, you could try by like doing all this stuff, and it's a bit harder because you just don't have that much control over what you're doing. I'm just going to zero that out so we don't have any changes there. But that's essentially it. And the fun part is this part, I think, you know, it's trying to make it look better. The fun part for me is getting to that point where you've kind of got that final image, and then you can disable what you've done and be like, oh wow, cool. I can't believe it looked like that. I did the whole edit with it looking like this, and, you know, the color is something you always come to last, because, you know, there's no point going through the color on loads of things that you're not even going to use. So, you know, you lock your edit and then you do your color. But that's the gist of it. I know I talked about it as if I didn't just throw on an Instagram filter, and it looks like I did. But there's a little bit more to it than that, and you know, you can change the intensity of the filter and even change some factors within the LUTs. And there's like hundreds out there. And, you know, there's people that are like, their whole job is creating LUTs, and people sell like LUT packs online, and you can download them. There's a whole industry out there. You know, there's a rabbit. If you try and get into this and like start downloading, there's a whole rabbit hole industry of like people that are just, you know, the internet LUTscape out there and things like that. But that's the gist, and that's how you can make something look good. Now, the reason I can't just throw that on another, okay, so this is what I'm going to do is take off the LUTs to kind of show something now. Leave on my color board, so boost. So now I'm just going to boost it to, okay, boost saturation. Let's bring that up a little bit. I'm also going to delve into here slightly and change the color temperature as well, because it's looking a bit blue. So get it to about there. I'm going to increase the contrast again slightly as well, because I want it to just be a little bit, blacks to be a little bit darker, without losing all the detail in his beard and face. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to get it to a point now where like this is something that might come out of your phone or a camera that doesn't shoot in like a flat profile. So to sort of emulate just having that footage lesson clip, okay, that sounds good. So now I just put this in a new clip, which basically is going to treat this as if it just looked like that. Now, if you just shot on a normal camera on your phone and put it into an editing software, it's going to come in like this. And now, if I try and color correct it, you might get like an understanding of how little I can do with it, really. Because I open up this, and you can see it's already maxed out. There's nowhere for me to go. I can bring the highlights down, but like it's bringing everything down. I can bring this up, but it kind of flattens it all out. Like I don't have the same control over it as I did when I had that flat image. So it's essentially always going to look something like that. And I can try and apply a LUT to this as well. So let's go back to my LUT list. Maybe even go to like Montpellier where I was before. You know, now it's looking a bit Instagram-y. Can you see that? The blacks are really dark. Like we're losing a bit of detail. It's not as sharp. So that's why like just whacking on an Instagram filter or just whacking on a filter, I mean, it looks all right. It certainly looks, you know, it looks interesting and good, but it definitely looks different to like, let's go back to my original. Oh, I disabled all that, didn't I? I know. Why did I fuck up my thing? I know, I turned the color board off. That's good.
This is your way in.
This is my video. This is from my edit, which has gone straight from like a flat image that I originally recorded, back to this, which is just, you know, well, let's go to this part here. Like one thing I noticed straight away. Oh, text from my boss. Oh, hello. This is actually, it's not a text from my boss. It is a text from my boss, but it's a text from my boss direct to the Chocolate Films chat. Hi, Aziz has just made a lovely advert for our establishing shop project. Just posted it on Instagram from Chocolate Films. Will you all like it and share? I thought she was just going to talk more about me, how good it was, but I guess she just wants everyone to like it. Anyway, so you can see straight away that, like, you know, the white is kind of blown out on his face, and it's just dark. It looks like a bit more. It looks amateur. It looks like someone's put. This looks like someone's put a filter on it. This looks like someone's put a filter on this footage, and it's subtle. The differences are subtle, and that's why it's so hard. And that's why you're like, that sometimes looks good and something looks bad, and something looks like a filter and something looks it doesn't. Like, it's hard to put it into words. I'm not saying it's like a massive difference. It really isn't. Like, this actually looks fine. This actually looks quite good, and I did, you know, maybe this would have been easier to do, but there's something about it in our head that tells us that that looks a little bit more unprofessional than bear with me, than this, just because there's so much more detail across the whole image. There's no like on the side of his face we can it's white light, but we can see it, and you just won't get that just by throwing on a filter on something. So yeah, it is throwing on a filter, but there's a little bit more to it than that, and there's a whole world to learn out there, and I've shown a really simple version that you can learn quite quickly. But you know, the more you delve into it, the more you can get into it. So it's basically it's like a combination of color correction and using filters. And you know, so this guy in my office, he's like the go-to guy for coloring. He's not an expert, but he's way better than like most of us. And like, you know, when he's done, if I've come onto a project that he's done before me, then his list of things is like so much bigger, and there's so many layers, and he's like, you know, sometimes I've got things in the right order, in the wrong order, because order matters. Like, you know, I can do the color correction first, and then underneath that something else, and then blah blah blah. Oh, another text from a colleague. CF ad looking slick, well played, man. Cheers, mate. Actress sounds like she has a stuffy nose. That's kind of a legend. Yeah, so that also matters as well. And I just realised at the bottom, another thing I added was a vignette as well. Very subtle thing, but I add that to all my videos. I just think it, like, all my videos and photos, I fucking love vignette. Like, just so subtly, not so it's obvious. Like, that's literally what I think. I add a vignette and I make it smaller and smaller and smaller until I think, okay, you can't notice that anymore. You can't see there's a vignette on that unless I take it off and on, and then you can see it. But when it's on, you can't see it. It's nice. It just brings everything to the middle, especially for a video like this, where, you know, we're all focused in the middle anyway. I think it looks good. It looks really good. But yeah, that's the gist. You can do that. There's so many other levels. For example, I don't know if you noticed down here, I've got an adjustment layer. Adjustment layer is something that essentially it's just a way for you to. It's a blank. It's almost like a blank clip, and any effects you apply to that, mostly coloring is what I use it for. It applies to everything beneath it. So it's just a nice way of, like, rather than affecting clips directly. For example, as you can see, I did some of these clips individually. Like, for example, the base color correction, what I was doing before, you know, raising the saturation and lowering the shadows and things. I did that to each of these individually, but then I applied like a LUT and another subtle grade to this adjustment layer, and then applied that across all the clips, and that kind of gives them like a uniformity. You can see that that's that by itself, that's her by herself, and this is the LUT applied over the top of it. So I won't hold you too much longer, and that was the gist. Again, I'm not necessarily trying to teach you anything here, because that would take too long, and obviously it's hard to do it remotely. But I'm just trying to let you kind of teach you about how this works and what you do, and just more hopefully inspire your interest slightly. So I know we'll all know why you've been waiting this long. It's to hear her say industry. So let's do this. Also, it'd be nice to see. Maybe you'd be interested in seeing some of like the initial footage, but just listen to this.
Do you want to work in the film industry?
Industry? What's that?
Or work in Lambeth, Lewisham, Southwark, or
Alright, let's find her again. By the way, that's her mum in the background, fucking filming. I just stopped this shot. I was like, oi, fuck off, bitch. Okay. Alright. Okay, let's find her again.
Do you want to work in the film industry?
Am I crazy, or is that awful? Industry? It's not awful, I shouldn't say that, but like, it's weird.
Then this is your way in.
Now, at one point she says it right, because I basically told her to. I wish I was on camera or I recorded myself like telling her to do it. That'd have been funny, but.
Do you want to work in the film industry?
That's a really bad one. Listen to that.
Do you want to work in the film industry?
See? Now you know why I cut it. Anyway, I'm taking it too much of your time. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.